All right, guys, what's up? Welcome back to Brand+Shred. Very excited to have local guests. We're in the new studio. Actually, I didn't tell you this even. This is our brand new studio. Finally got it set up. Plus, we're
super cool.
Finally, the things are coming back to normal, having people back in the office. So I'm excited to have our guest, Earl Foote, from Nexus, CEO and founder. I mean, being a founder these days, sometimes people are like, oh, you founded this company, that's great. But you founded Nexus IT back in 1998. I mean, 23 years, which, I mean, that's almost unheard of in the tech industry because things are so evolving so rapidly in tech. Sometimes it's like, oh, going to this tech company, but you guys have been around for a long time. And for those who don't know Nexus IT, I want you to take a little bit, tell us about Nexus IT, how you got started in the IT industry, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what are some of the things you enjoy here in Utah?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, first of all, Josh, for having me on today. This is a cool opportunity, and I enjoy doing this. And you're right, particularly in the tech industry, tech startups are fast and furious, and most founders are out within 3 to 5 years, either by their choice, an exit or something, or they're pushed out by investors that are replacing them, or boards or shareholders. And so my 23-year journey, I've never taken anybody else's money, and so I kind of get to call the shots.
That's awesome.
Maybe I shouldn't still be, at the helm of the organization, but I am, and I've had a lot to learn in 23 years, and I feel like I'm still learning every single day. So you asked about Nexus IT. We are a white glove outsourced IT support and cybersecurity firm. We service a nationwide footprint. Headquartered here in the mountains of Utah and Park City and in Salt Lake. It has been a really interesting journey. I grew up in Utah. Mountains have always been a big part of me and my life.
It's awesome.
Nature is my connection to source, if you want to call it. It's how I find balance and re-energize myself. And so hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, camping, and traveling. I have a bit of a travel problem.
Nice. Where have you been recently? You enjoyed?
Actually, just did a 10-day with my wife for our 4th anniversary. We did 10 days through Sun Valley and Glacier.
Nice, congrats. That's fun.
And Puerto Rico a little earlier this summer for 3 weeks, which was fantastic as well. I like international travel a lot, but I also like doing local road trips a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys who right there with you. I love the outdoors. That's what Utah is so appealing to. Is there's so much you can do here. I love to hike, bike, camp, and then we have everything from skiing to you go to southern Utah. You can bike in the middle of winter. You can kind of do everything here. So and I'm with you too. I love to travel, but every time I come back to Utah, as much as we do travel, especially within different capacities, every time I come back, I fly in to the Salt Lake Valley, see the mountains. I'm like, this is home. Like this is it. So. So when I want to talk more about this here in a minute, but when it comes to cybersecurity too, like that's a huge thing these days, especially when it comes to building a brand, because when you're building a brand, you're on social media. So there's, of course, and especially, working with big mortgage companies as I have in the past, cybersecurity is a big thing. And I know that's like a lot of companies like concern is like, well, if you're posting on social media, is like, what's the chance of getting hacked? And what's the chance of like some type of cyber attack to actually happen? So I would love to get into that because, again, creating content, doing what we're doing a podcast, is there more of a risk? Is there more of a susceptibility to things like that? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
If I'm honest, the answer is yes. There is more of a risk. The more information you put out there and make public, the more bad actors, or hackers, cyber criminals, whatever you want to call them, have to potentially use against you, right? The more they know about your company and the people in your company and your practices and you and your personal life, the easier it is for them to do, targeted spear phishing campaigns or try to directly scam you or your team. We oftentimes see, executive teams where the CFO gets a spear phishing email from the CEO, supposedly, right?
Oh,
they've spoofed an email address and said, hey, I need you to do this wire to this vendor, emergency right now, $52,000 needs to happen, by 1 p.m. at the latest. And, the unsuspecting CFO will go, okay, well, the CEO told me I got to do the wire, so I'm going to do it, right? The more that they know about you, the more your risk is heightened. And so it's definitely an interesting situation to try to, be part of a modern business society and create a business and a personal brand.
Sure.
And not give up too much, particularly when your business is cybersecurity, right?
I was going to say, when
It's
your
delicate.
business is all about that, which you actually made a post recently, and I'm super intrigued. All of us who carry iPhones and Apple, with their announcement recently. I mean, are you an Apple fan?
I'm agnostic.
yeah?
I use I use and like both. Mac or Apple. Mac or
Windows
PC products, Windows products. Yeah.
Huh. So there's not one or the other. You're like, oh, one's a little bit more secure than the other, but you kind of just act like, hey, they all have their flaws, so there's good and pros and cons to each of them.
Yeah, really, it comes down to personal user preference. Honestly, I mean, there was a time when I would say that an Apple was probably more secure than the PC. I would say those times have mostly gone away, and in fact, tomorrow I'll be on Park City TV tomorrow morning talking about a new Apple exploit, which was announced yesterday. They issued a fix already. So if you have an Apple device, whether it's a piece, a computer or a mobile device, go do your updates now. But that exploit, simply by a hacker sending you an image through iMessage, they're able to gain full access and control to your device 100%.
No way.
And you have no idea. Like, it's completely behind the scenes.
What?
Yeah.
So everybody go get your update done like immediately.
Immediately.
Well, there you go. For all you listeners, if you haven't done that already, you better get it done right now.
Yeah.
So we're really focused on building a brand. It's something you have done phenomenally as a CEO, as a founder. We don't, and especially in the tech space, we don't see this a lot because, I mean, respectively, a lot of these guys are, they're computer people. I don't want to call them nerds. I don't want to say that by any means. But
I'm a nerd. It's cool.
All right, we're going to go that direction. But a lot of times, there's like, no, I don't want to. I'm uncomfortable with that. I don't want to build a brand. What is building a brand actually going to do for me? But you've done it. But even when we were sitting down, you even mentioned like it was uncomfortable for you. And I don't even know if it's still something that we're, as humans, we still almost struggle. As human nature, doing stuff like this can be uncomfortable, but we continue to push ourselves. So building a brand for you, was it uncomfortable in the beginning?
100%. Yeah. And I think most of us geeks are natural introverts,
Sure.
We're not super into putting ourselves out there. And I wasn't. And for me, Josh, it came down, I'm 23 years into this journey, right?
Yeah.
The first decade or 12 years, honestly, I operated the business from behind the scenes. Sure, in the early years, I was, doing everything. I was going out to client sites and, doing implementations and doing support and all that kind of stuff, right? But as time went on, I started to operate the business behind the scenes. And, I'm a growth-oriented guy, and I have a growth-oriented business. And, you start bumping up against walls. And, I started to kind of gauge the market a little bit more, do a little more study, talk to clients and prospects, and really kind of came to this realization that in modern business today, people do not want to engage with faceless businesses anymore.
Of course.
And particularly my business is 100% trust relationship-based business, right?
Yep.
Another business does not outsource their technology or their cybersecurity to you unless they implicitly trust you, right?
Sure.
And it's hard for them to do that when they don't really know the faces behind the scenes, right, of the business. And so I made a decision, and it's probably been close to a decade ago that I made the decision that I'm going to have to work on my game and figure out how to build a personal brand that supports the brand of my business, right? And it's, for me, it was and is, continues to be. I mean, I do a significant amount of speaking engagements and podcasts and, radio and TV and my own, podcasts and content and all that kind of stuff. It's never comfortable for me. Not yet, man.
You're still waiting for that, like, oh, I feel great doing this.
Yeah. I still get nerves and I still get a little jittery and my palms sweat a little bit, every time. And, you ease into it and you get more comfortable. But those minutes leading up, are fairly anxious for me generally because it's not my natural element.
Sure.
but I can unequivocally say that it has been the right decision for my business. And for me too. I mean, it has definitely allowed me to grow as an individual, as a leader, to be put into places where I probably wouldn't have been, in circles and networks and things like, we were talking about the board of governors for the Salt Lake Chamber,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
If I hadn't have established a healthy brand as a responsible leader, in my business and in the community, that probably would have never happened, right? And so it's led to a lot of good things. I can unequivocally say that it is our number one lead gen source for our business right now, and it has been for several years. And it, and I should say what I mean by that is our thought leadership content game, right?
Sure.
Mine and the businesses.
Yep.
It leads to dozens of qualified leads per month for us.
Wow.
And so it's had a significant impact on the business, and my own personal life as well. And some of those impacts aren't always positive.
Of course, yeah.
But it's unequivocally building, my brand, deciding to build my personal brand, has been a positive thing. The interesting thing for me, and it seems that a lot of business leaders who are building a personal brand generally have ulterior motives, like they're trying to sell like a coaching program or books or something like that, or trying to be an influencer. And I've never once professed to trying to be an influencer. I'm just trying to be a thought leader that is trying to produce value-added content that helps other leaders in our community, that helps our clients, our partners, our prospects, that helps the community, at large. And that approach, has worked really well for us. But honestly, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Sometimes people call me an influencer, and I'm like, I'm kind of uncomfortable with that title, and I don't know that I really want it.
Yeah.
If I'm influencing positivity and goodness, then cool, like that's cool. Otherwise, I don't know that I really care about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sell anything else.
Sure.
I already said it, but just, putting my cards on the table, I have built a personal brand because it has led to significant business opportunity, right?
Of course.
And that is, it's not the only reason. When I originally started, and it's still very much a part of my motive, it is helping and adding value to the community and to other entrepreneurs, right?
See, I love that. And I want to unpack, there's so much in there that you just said that I want to unpackage, but I want to start here because you mentioned 10 years ago, that's when you started to recognize, you're like, okay, you know what? I need to start building a brand. You recognize at that time, like, hey, this is important. And at that time you've been in the business, 12 years almost at that point. And you're just like, okay, this is important. Where did you start? Where did you did you start with a podcast? Did you start like social media? Where did you start speaking? Like you mentioned speaking engagements. Where did you start when it came to building a brand?
Excuse me. I think what I started to do, if I remember correctly, was just text posts, right? It started really simple and easy. And even that, I was a little bit, you're vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. Sometimes you're really self-conscious about, wait, is my grammar right? Is my spelling right? Like I'm putting this out there and in front of a public audience. And granted, there are, social media mediums that stuff isn't, people don't really care about it. But,
right.
But when you're posting like on LinkedIn, it should be pretty damn professional,
Absolutely.
Well,
because people judge you. They see, they're like, wait a minute. And did you ever struggle? I know for me, when I first started, building my brand, probably around the same time, using social media, I struggled just as a human because I was so worried about what people were going to think. I was just like, well, what are people going to think of me? What are my peers going to think of me? What are my employees going to think of me?
What my family's going to think.
Oh, that was probably the biggest. Like,
what's my team going to think? Like, are they going to be cool with me, like, being super out there in public, right? All that stuff, comes across your mind, and absolutely, like, you're creating public record, and you don't want to sound like a babbling, ignorant idiot, as you're doing it, and so you become very self-conscious, and honestly, it's if I'm just open and vulnerable, that's still a struggle for me today. Like, I will reread my posts before I put them up, like 3 or 4 times. And then I go back and read them again, and oftentimes I still find like a spelling error or I missed a comma somewhere, you know. And I'm like, oh man, here we go. So I got to go edit it and fix
it. At that same time, though, you've got to see again, like you said, you're doing this from such a place of like value, and because you care about people, you care about the community, you care about, you want to keep people safe when it comes in within that realm of cybersecurity. You're putting out this content. You're not selling, again, of course, Nexus IT, don't get me wrong, of course they have a product, but at the same time, like you said, you're not that influencer. You're not selling a coaching course like, hey, come sign up for $9.99 or $49.99 a month to join this. You're really putting out that content because you want to see people improve. You want to see their success. So at the same time, you have that internal battle, like what are people going to think? But at the same time, you're providing this valuable service, so you continue to do it.
Yeah, and look, wherever I go in the community, and that's been a very unexpected thing for me. But people thank me all the time for being a thought leader, right? For putting myself out there and the content that we create out there. And just to reiterate a point that you kind of touched on there, and that is that I've definitely found that today's market is not into self-promotion, right?
Absolutely.
So, and that's not the type of person I am anyways. I mean, like it just, when people are overly self-promotional, or when I have been in the past, I find it a very uncomfortable place to be, awkward, and so we try to create content that is educational, that helps. When I started in business 23 years ago, having been growing up in a blue collar family on the west side of the Salt Lake Valley, right? Which, if you grew up in Salt Lake, you knew there was this west side, east side thing, right? Yep. East side was privilege, had money. West side, we were poor. Of
course.
Blue collar. And
you live on the west side of State Street? Oh, you're one of those people.
You're one of those people, yeah. Okay.
I was on the west side too. I feel you.
Yeah, man. So I totally forget where I was going with that now.
See, that's the best part about it. But we were talking about, creating the content for, the audience. That's who you've done it for. And that's, again, people have thought, I see you. When I first met you, I had seen your videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Earl. Like, that's when we first were introduced at a Silicon Slopes event. I was like, holy cow, I had seen your content. And that's exactly why we do it, is because we honestly, I'm the same way. Shred, we don't have a coaching program. We put out content. We put out so much valuable content, and I don't mean that in a brag, but we want others to succeed. We're hoping that this post, this podcast is going to inspire somebody else. It's going to help them get to wherever they want to be.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. So what I was saying is, when I started in business, like today's environment is extremely different, to 23 years ago. Like the access to resources and information and people and mentors and coaches and all that kind of stuff 23 years ago, and networks, just it wasn't the same. And so I struggled, for many, many years, even a decade, to kind of figure out, because I didn't go do an MBA program. I graduated in civil engineering, right?
No kidding.
And so graduated in civil engineering, and then went and did some, certifications in IT to start the business with my brother back in '98. And anyways, like I fell flat on my face time and time again. Like, I didn't know how to do marketing. I didn't know how to do sales. I didn't know how really to do operations, or I didn't know the first thing about finances. And that's still a weak spot for me. Like I should say business finances, right? That's why I rely on a CFO,
you have
and
a team.
I have a team to, to help with those things. But, basically I figured, if I'm going to do some sort of give back and help, my community, I want to help other leaders and entrepreneurs avoid some of the pitfalls and the struggles and the pain that I went through. If I can help them shortcut, what took me 8 years to learn, and they can learn it in 3 because there's content available for them, to learn it, then cool. That's what we try to put out there. And of course we produce, technology and cybersecurity related content as well, but a lot of our content's around entrepreneurship and leadership, just to add value to the community.
Yeah, and again, going back to your podcast and the content you're creating, because your podcast is Tech Beats, and I'm assuming, and watching the episodes that I have, talking about tech, but it's talking not just about tech, but it's talking, like you said, talking about leadership too. I think I just saw a post you guys have. There's a leadership summit or something here in the next couple of weeks that, again, you're helping people get better. You're helping people get better at who they are, whether they're an entrepreneur, entrepreneur, whether they're a leader. And I know that's at the Nexus IT. I love watching your guys' posts as a company because that's what you breed within your culture. And that's kind of where I want to start heading in this direction is as you start to build your brand, as you start to kind of put yourself out there, we mentioned this, your employees are watching you. Do you think it's been like an opportunity as they see, they're like, oh, well, Earl's doing this, like he's doing it, like if he can do this, do you think it gives them confidence? Do you think that breeds a sense of culture where people are feeling more accepted to put themselves out there and to grow?
Most definitely it makes it feel more comfortable. Now, sure. The majority of our team are very introverted geeks
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
And none of them would ever dream of trying to be, very public on social media. In fact, because we're cybersecurity and privacy experts, a lot of our people have zero social media whatsoever. Sure. They have no accounts,
Yeah.
And most of them, honestly, they would never try. But yes, it has given people more license. Some people on the team, frankly, still today are somewhat uncomfortable with, how public we are as a company, and I am as a leader, right? Or have become, I should say. But the majority get it, and yes, it's a lot of them have already become very engaged and somewhat endeared toward the organization in the recruiting process.
Sure.
When we're looking for new talent, of course, we're looking for the best possible talent we can find, and we want people who see the vision and the mission, who want to be part of that, right? And want to be part of something cool and important and impactful. And so certainly it's not just a marketing effort or a value add, serve the community effort, but it's also, helped our recruiting efforts significantly.
I was going to say that as a recruiting effort, people just see who you are. And that's when I first saw your videos years ago, and just as you created content, it's like, man, like I know who Earl is. I feel like that's what's cool, so cool about the social media, or the medium that is social media, is you can connect with people. Now, it's not like sitting here face to face, but at the same time, if somebody, if you're trying to recruit somebody, they can see a video of you and they're like, man, like what Earl just said there, that connected with me, that made an impact on me. And that's something that I don't think that executives and founders even understand to this day. They're so reserved and they're so guarded for whatever reason. Maybe they're scared, or maybe it's because their organization or whatever it may be. But at the same time, like you said, and like, again, I know just watching your employees and your posts with, as you onboard new people, I see this, this sense of like being part of something more. And like, they're just like, hey, I've got this confidence in Earl. I see what he's doing. I want to be part of this organization. And I know that as I've built a brand, and it's, as we've recruited more people onto the Shred team, they come on with that same, and some of them, they don't want anything to do with social media, which is totally okay. But you as a leader are at least putting yourself out there. You at the head of, and I applaud you. I know, I'm sure there's people in your organization or even people around you or on the, Salt Lake Chamber, the board of governors that are like, hey, really, Earl, everyone, like, why would you do that? Do you really need to be out there? Yeah. Do you feel like even within that group, because that's such a respected group here in Utah, being a leader within that group and building your brand, do you think that's inspired others within that group as well?
Yeah, I would say that certainly the more that leaders become more vocal in public, the more license they give to other leaders who are kind of on the edge, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that all leaders of all organizations, have to be out there, on social media or whatever, in the public eye. There are type of organizations or type of leaders that I don't think it lends to.
Sure.
In my business, 100%, I needed to figure out a way. And honestly, what we've done with thought leadership and content creation has 100% hacked our sales cycle.
That's awesome.
We had very long, drawn out sales cycles that were months and years in building relationships. And now, again, we have dozens of qualified leads that come to us every month, strictly off of our content and thought leadership game.
That's amazing.
And they're usually ready to engage, immediately. They already trust us because we've already established ourselves as a trusted advisor in the marketplace, right?
Of course.
And so, it's significantly shortened our relationship building process and significantly shortened our sales cycles. And it's allowed us to continue to move upstream in the market, continually, working with bigger fish, bigger deals, bigger projects, more interesting engagements. And And so, yeah, I mean, for us, it's been fantastic. I get it that there are, businesses or leaders that it's not applicable
Sure.
to. And most definitely your old school leaders are a little more uncomfortable with it. There are some of those, that, on the Salt Lake Board of Governors or other circles that I might run in that feel like it's a little too much, and maybe I'm a little too much to take, but that's okay. I don't mind,
How do you deal with that? Are you like, I'm just going to do me is cool. You do you, I'm going to do me.
Yeah, totally. Like, and that's something I've, and I'd say because of my introverted nature, a lot of my life, I have been a little bit overly self-conscious of what people might think of me. And that's still like something that I consistently work on. But for the most part, I've gotten to a point where I'm comfortable with like, look, this is me.
Of course.
This is what I'm doing, and it's working for me, and it's working for my organization. I realize that it may not be the right approach for you, and that's cool. I don't mind. Like, you do your thing.
Yeah.
I'll do my thing, and maybe I'm a bit much to handle for some people, but I'm okay with it.
Well, I think you mentioned something right there that is so critical with brand is like, Earl is Earl, Josh is Josh. Everybody has their, and if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. People can see that too. They can see it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like you said, going back to it, like, hey, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be a little bit uncomfortable when you do this thing, but people can tell when you're trying to put on an act, and people can see through it very, very quickly, especially as you're trying to build a brand. People are like, clearly this guy's like, he's just after my money, or he's doing this for the wrong reasons. Going back to what you mentioned earlier, if you come from a place of being genuine, being real, being authentic, and you're just like, hey, I'm going to share me. I'm going to do this not just for the benefit and the impact of others, but I think too, the more I do this and the more I share and the more I create content, it's a confidence booster for me. Like, it helps me mentally, emotionally, physically, as I go out to do other, as I go out to do trainings or speak in other places. It's helped me drastically, because I remember when I started, I was nervous as hell too.
Yeah, man, 100%. So, I mean, a couple of things I would reiterate there is, first of all, if you're going to have some sort of content game, figure out how to tap into your authentic self. Oof. Like, do some self-discovery, do some deep work, maybe go to some meditation classes. Sure. Or that's what I did, but I mean, get a coach or whatever, right? You need to figure out who you are as an individual and how to show up as that individual.
So, I mean, you mentioned something right there that I think is like absolutely critical for anybody building a brand, and LinkedIn in particular, because I don't think you're not active really on any other social platforms other than LinkedIn right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, in terms of, business, LinkedIn and some Facebook, and I have a public figure Facebook page.
Nice.
I don't use it a ton. I of course have a personal Facebook page, but that for me, and I use a little bit Instagram. I'm a little bit old school. I'm 46,
Hey, I like it.
Instagram, I'm still not, and I certainly don't do stuff like TikTok or Snapchat or any of that kind of stuff.
I'm the younger side, and I still don't like the whole TikTok thing. We're trying to get there as a team. Like our younger team members are like, hey, we got to do this, but I just don't know. But so you said something here. When you post personal, and that is what is so critical. I mean, you mentioned being genuine, being authentic. Every single one of us as humans, like sharing personal activity, like you said, when you share something personal, even on LinkedIn, you get more likes, you get more engagement, because people are like, oh my, that's Earl. Like that's who he is. That's who he is as a brand. And that, again, that correlates to who Nexus IT is as a company. So, but there's a fine line with it too. I think there's a very fine line.
Yeah. First of all, I think, in a business setting, like, the biggest faux pas I see is people mixing politics and religion,
big time.
in LinkedIn posts or any sort of business type of post. And family, I think there's an appropriate place sometimes.
Sure.
But I'm one of those guys that's a little more conservative, and I really don't want to put my own family in the public eye. Like, I don't necessarily want to put pictures of my kid and my kids and my wife out there, for everybody to see, for whoever, wants to see it. Now, on my Facebook page, which is locked down to my actual friends and people, family, people I actually know, right? That's a totally different, story. But on a public LinkedIn profile, you're probably not going to see me post that kind of stuff. However, I was saying when I'm able to mix in a little bit more of who I am outside of the office, like I'm a musician, I'm a bass player, I play in a band, I'm a gourmand, a chef, I'm a bit of a photographer, and so when I can mix in some of those things or a little bit about travel and correlate, the topic to business and or lessons within business, that's the kind of stuff that really gets the most amount of engagement. And I don't always do it. Like, a lot of my posts are just straight up business related, technology related, leadership related. But when I mix in a little bit of personal flair, that's what people seem to identify most with.
Well, and again, that goes back to the human aspect. Every single one of us, those things, playing guitar, photography, being a chef, those are hobbies that you enjoy. Of course, all of us work, like that's part of our life. But outside of that, the things that we really like, the things that just get us ticking in the morning, the things we're like, yeah, later today I got to go play in a band, I got to go hang out with the band and strum and just have a good time with it. That's why when people see those posts, and we've done all kinds of data and research on that too, is watching posts that are more business related versus more personal. And of course, there's a reason that people engage more with personal stuff, because they're like, oh yeah, he's human. He's just like me. He likes to kick in and play the bass every once in a while. He likes to cook extravagant meals, or he likes to travel and do those things. So I think that does play into building a personal brand. So as we start to wrap things up, because I've been extremely grateful for your time and coming here and hanging out with us in the studio, but as we start to wrap things up here, where do you think, as you continue to grow your brand, this is something clearly, like you mentioned, this has been huge, exponential in your business. It still provides new opportunities all the time. How do you continue to see you build your brand? How do you continue to see, what are some of the things that you're still looking for? Again, you still have your podcast, but what are some of the things in the future that you are looking forward to building your brand or continuing to do what you've done?
Yeah, really good question. And I wish I had the exact answer to that. But my answer is that I think the market continually changes, and you constantly have to be kind of A/B testing and figuring out what's working, what's not working. Like some days I'll do a post that I think is going to be super engaging, and I get like 3 likes and no comments and like 8 views or something like that, And then the next day I'll post something that I think, nobody's going to pay attention to, and you get 10,000 views and, like tons of likes and comments and shares and stuff. And so I don't know, there's, of course, the algorithms, all play a role, but it's really unpredictable. And so I think just continuing to try to figure out the market as it evolves. I mentioned that with our, right now, our podcast is an hour-long live stream video podcast. For some people, that's not a consumable format, and people want quick hits. So we're going to do a shortened version called Tech Beat Bites.
Nice.
It'll be 3 on-point leadership tips in 5 minutes. So I'm going to bring on, and I have a large circle of friends that are, that are leaders and entrepreneurs and stuff. And so I'm going to bring on, some friends, some colleagues and stuff, just to like, what are the 3 most important lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur, right? Let's go through them quick, 5 minutes. Boom. So, and I think that that's going to be a little bit better received than an hour long, sort of format. Now there are people who love to go listen to, our full podcast, and you can always do them at, time and a half or, double speed or whatever too, in the car, to do it quicker. But, so I'm just constantly trying to gauge what is the market identifying with, in terms of, more development of my own personal brand or how that relates to the business brand. I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I need to do now unless the market significantly changes.
Sure.
I will say this, and that is that I would caution any entrepreneur leader who is trying to build a personal brand. You have to be careful to figure out how to correctly support your business brand while not becoming overly dominant of your own business brand, right?
That's key.
That's a struggle that I've had, and something that I've had to try to figure out of how do I get the market to recognize that I'm not the business brand, right? That I am the CEO, but the business is the business, and they can count on anybody and everything within the business because we built a really amazing business with really amazing people and talent and lots of process and procedure that ensures their success, right? And not robotic process and procedure, but stuff that enables people to be successful in their roles. And so I think you can easily overshadow your own business brand if you don't figure out how to make the right delineations between who you are as an individual and that personal brand and what your business is and what your business does, right? So I would definitely caution, any entrepreneur that's, trying to figure out their own branding game, you need a business brand.
Agreed.
Unless your business is you, I mean, like if you're a mortgage agent or, there's situations where you are your business, right? But if you have a business that has more people or products or services that are, being sold, you need to figure out how to distinguish those two and then not overshadow your business. And of course, if you can figure out a way to create funnels from the personal brand into the business, then I think you have a winning formula.
I say then you're golden, right? You're perfect. See, and that is such good words of wisdom from somebody who's been there, who's kind of experienced that, hearing that. And everybody who's listening and watching this, you have to take that to heart, because you really do. There is a differentiating factor that you need to make sure that your brand isn't overshadowing it. So such key points. And that's why I was so excited to have you on the show, because I'm like, man, Earl has been doing this for so long. He sees where industries are going. He sees, and again, being in tech yourself, being that it's continually changing, continually evolving, it's something you have to be aware of. It's something that, and again, you've done such an incredible job as a leader, as somebody who, again, I've looked up to, I've watched from afar, and watching you create content, watching you inspire other people from what you, and the way you've acted and the way you've put out content. It's been amazing. So I appreciate everything you've done for the industry, for here in Utah. Like I said, here locally in Utah, like you mentioned earlier, like, oh yeah, like you're recognized everywhere, man. People just know who you are, because you're so selfless in the way that you want to see others succeed. You want to see others improve, and you're willing just to give and give and give and give. You have that giver's mentality. So really appreciate all you do with it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not always, honestly, again, it's not always a comfortable situation for me when I go to events, and, I don't want to over embellish, but sometimes like you get swarmed, and it's kind of like, whoa, wait a second, this is not my element. Like, it's not, I'm not comfortable with like having a ton of people around you and like, wanting to engage with a bunch of people all at once. I'm more comfortable one-on-one sort of situations. So, but thank you. I mean, I have tried to do something that I feel like is meaningful and helps our business community. If that resonates, and if some people feel that that's been the case, then fantastic. I've done my job.
There you go. And that's just it. Well, how we end every episode is we, our good friends over at Pod Deck, we always do a couple of random questions in here, just to, you never know what you're going to get, but so this will be a kind of just a quick random way to end our show and get to know Earl a little bit better. So
the interview deck, I haven't seen this.
You got to check these guys out. So okay. Pod Decks, like these guys are phenomenal. We work with them. They don't sponsor the show or anything, but he's become a really good friend, and they have a whole bunch of different decks, and you can just draw from them. They've got some great random questions, great interview questions. So
that's cool.
I'm just going to take the first three that come off the top. So first three, if you could be a personal assistant to anyone, who would it be to?
Bill McDermott. He's the CEO of SAP, one of the largest software companies in the world. He has a book called Winner's Dream. I really identify with the guy. He grew up like you and I, in a blue collar neighborhood, blue collar family, and worked his way up with grit and hard work and stick-to-itiveness to CEO of, I don't know what the company's worth. It's hundreds of billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And he operates, that international company. And I just think he is, identify with his story and the leader he is, and how genuine and authentic and still humble he is. I'm a person who tries to remember where I came from.
Sure.
I came from the sticks, per se, right? And I think humility is extremely important in leadership, and particularly when you start to reach some heights of success, being able to stay grounded and kind of say, like, this is where I came from and this is who I am, and I'm not going to become some pompous ass, just
that's so true.
Yeah. And I think Bill is not. He seems to be a very genuine person. So yeah, I'd enjoy, I think, learning from him.
So yeah, I think that's a good one. And see, because as I think about this as you're talking too, I'm just like, you could say somebody like Jeff Bezos, or you could see somebody like, Bill, or anybody in these big roles, but somebody like that who, again, they understand who you are, and you, again, kind of more of a personal connection to somebody like that. I think that's big. I like that one a lot. All right, question number 2. What 3 things would you leave in a time capsule for people to open in 50 years? Well, that's an interesting one.
Wow, man.
3 things to open. 3 things. All right, what 3 things would you leave?
Okay. Probably a current cell phone, a current mobile device. Like
literally what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
One of the things.
Technology has changed so much. I remember just at the very end of the tail end of my teenage years, my dad had those first Motorola brick phones
bricks
with the huge battery, because he was in was an electrical contractor, and that huge battery that was like the size of 8 books, you'd carry around in this big case, and it was actually corded to the battery, the phone and everything, like the first generation, Motorola brick phones, and now you see what we have today. And so what's that going to look like in 50 years? So definitely a mobile phone, probably because I am in technology, probably a current PC, Apple, just
That's
so that people
idea.
can kind of see what things are like. And I would probably leave some words, some words of wisdom. I don't feel like I'm a very wise person, but I've been through the ringer several times in life too, not only on a business level, but on a personal level.
Yeah.
So I'd probably leave some words of wisdom,
I like that.
some advice. Yeah.
That's good. I'd leave a Twinkie too. I just think like, I know it sounds funny, but
dude, that'd be massively still.
I know. People say Twinkies can last forever. So I'm like, okay, I'm putting a Twinkie in the time capsule. If you find this and you can eat it, don't ever eat it again, because whatever is in that thing is not good for you. So I like those. You're good though. The words of wisdom I think is a good one. And a computer, but I agree. We're so attached to these things. Like, what's this going to look like in 50 years?
Yeah.
Like that's what's crazy for me. So it'll be interesting to see.
Is it just going to be like integrated into your,
I know, it's just
side of your brain or something? I don't know.
There's a little touch right here. Like, hey, hello.
That's what scares me. But
I know. Like, okay, last one. What is your kryptonite? Ooh, that's an interesting one.
What is my kryptonite?
Yeah, what's your kryptonite?
I guess these aren't things I often talk about. I learn, over the years to become more and more vulnerable, more and more open. So I deal with some health problems. I actually was born 2 months premature.
Wow.
And I have a mouth, what do I call it? I'm drawing a blank. I have a condition called intestinal malrotation, which is a deformity of the intestines.
Interesting.
And that's affected me on many different levels throughout my life. I've developed osteoarthritis because of it. And so I deal with chronic pain, chronic inflammation. And honestly, that's kind of what generally keeps me from doing what I want to do most days. Like, I usually run out of energy and I get to the end of my rope with the inflammation and pain. And so I kind of have to figure out my right balances of, how much work I'm going to give to things. And sometimes I end up sacrificing like the exercise because I literally can't, I just don't have anything more to give,
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of been, I think, my biggest struggle that's held me back personally and professionally is dealing with some health problems.
I think health is one of those things. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's kind of on the flip side of that. My kryptonite is, I've always tried to stay a really healthy person. And it's something has always got to me, and this is like being super vulnerable, is like whenever I start to gain weight, or whenever I start to get in a physical place where I don't perceive myself as being healthy, I have to I go into this weird, and my team knows and my wife knows, is something I've struggled with, is I get depressed and I get really down on myself. Oh no, I've got to get better. I've got to get healthy. I got to get strong. I got to look a certain way. And that's my kryptonite. It has held me back in certain things. And even to a place where I've made myself unhealthy because of it. And then I have people like you who actually suffer from health things. And I'm like, see, you're such an idiot. You should be happy that you're a healthy person. So it's interesting that
mine's pretty mild, compared to, I'm not going to pretend that because there are people that deal with significant ailments, right? Significant disabilities, and I'm not going to pretend to be on that sort of level, but it has been something that's held me back during my life. Hold you back.
Yeah, we all have those things, right?
Yeah.
But then we find great people to surround ourselves with. We find things that push us, and like you said, that motivate us to get up every single morning and to, even push ourselves through the pain sometimes. And again, I can't reiterate this enough, but that's what you've done as a leader. You continue to inspire, to motivate, and to lead from the front, and doing what you do with your brand and how you put yourself out there in ways it truly is inspiring. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for all that you've shared and for all you do for the Utah community.
Thank you again for the invite. It's been so much fun, Josh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're gonna have to have you on again as things continue. Like I said, maybe not 50 years from now, but even as tech continues to evolve, continues to change. Who knows what, cybersecurity with blockchain, things just around the corner. That's a whole nother conversation I'd love to hear your thoughts on. So time for another conversation one day, right?
Sounds like a rad chat, man.
I say it's going to come around. So guys, with that, huge shout out to Earl, huge shout out to Nexus IT and all that they do. Guys, check them out. His link for their podcast, Tech Beats, is going to be below. And then hopefully as he starts putting out Tech Beat Bites, we'll be sharing those as well. So guys, from everybody here at Brand+Shred, we appreciate you. We love you. Now it's time for all of you to go shred, go show up, hustle, repeat every day. See you guys. Hey everybody, thank you so much again for joining us on another episode of Brand+Shred. I hope you got as much value out of this episode as I did. And if you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss a single weekly episode with the incredible guests that we're bringing you to help you build your personal brand. Click that subscribe button, share, and even leave a comment. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Brand+Shred.